Well, I'm pleased to say I'm joined by FLOYD AMPHLETT of the Greyhound Star. Thank you very much for joining us here at Henley Dog Track, your local dog track.
It is, yeah. I live about 20 minutes away.
And a lovely day it here is as well. Now, you have seen the sport from so many different angles. Tell us about your life and career in greyhound racing.
Okay, I'll try and keep it fairly brief. I first went racing when I was 12 and went to Wimbledon. Would have been showing my age here, 1972. Then my dad had dogs. He was always interested. We were flapping people when I was a teenager, leading dogs. And then I went to the White City Kennels at North Orr when I was 16, just short of my 17th birthday. Met a lot of interesting people. A great place to visit, a great place to be, to learn about greyhounds. In fact, funnily enough, Graham Holland was there at the same time. We were good mates. And then my dad was training. I went home and we bred and trained dogs. Had stud dogs, Derby winner Mutt Silver and Pat Seamer and various other stud dogs, and trained at Yarmouth. I took my trainer's licence. Then I left and went to the racing office at Cambridge, worked in the racing office as assistant racing manager. Eventually got fed up of being skint and got out the game for a couple of years, literally 3 years in total, but I was writing by that stage and became a policeman. And then I was offered a job back as a full-time journalist while I was still a policeman, and so I came straight back in. Worked for Greyhound Star as the newspaper, joined in 1987, worked as a reporter, then became the editor, and then I eventually bought the newspaper and finally realised that the future of newspapers didn't have that long left, and we went online with the current Greyhound Star website, I think 4 years ago. So that's the story.
You've certainly seen the sport from all angles. I know this is a wide-ranging question, but how has the sport changed over the years from your point of view?
It's changed in just about every possible way. It's changed from volumes of people. I can remember saying 30,000 plus people at White City for a Derby final. I never saw the real glory days. Obviously they were the 40s and the 50s and certainly the 60s, but they've changed. When I grew up, I grew up on the flaps. There were about 90 flapping tracks even when I started working for the Greyhound Star. That's all changed. The dogs have changed very much in that the kind of the look of the dogs, certainly the behaviour of the dogs. Betting has changed considerably from, again, seeing maybe, I don't know, White City 30 bookmakers on one side and 40 on the other, down to a point that you can come to the meetings these days and the tracks have to pay two bookmakers to appear. Internet betting, you name it, that's just the betting side. I don't know where else to go really. There's just such a massive move in the industry. A massive change.
You're obviously a busy man with the Greyhound Star. Is it a job that you enjoy?
I do. It's a job that I still find very interesting. There's various aspects of it I find very interesting. A bit frustrating sometimes. Most of the time good. Running a website is relentless because it's pretty much a one-man band. I have a little bit of help from a couple of other writers, part-time writers, but it's largely down to me, so it's relentless 7 days a week.
You're very knowledgeable about the sport and you're also a very strong character, quite opinionated at times. Do you think that that's helped or hindered you in running the Greyhound Star?
I don't think it's particularly helped. I think I've irritated a lot of people along the way, but I don't think that you can really do my job and be frightened of upsetting people, because virtually any opinion you give is going to upset somebody. You like a particular dog and somebody wants to know why you didn't like theirs or why you didn't give their dog the same write-up. You can, I don't know, same goes for stadiums, for tracks, for individuals. You know, you praise somebody and somebody doesn't like it, and of course occasionally then you have to get stuck into people. But if you haven't got the guts for doing that, then you shouldn't really be a journalist.
It is a political sport though, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly political, and you know, people get driven by passion. The only thing that really irritates me on that side of things is the kind of personal abuse that you particularly get on the forums, I don't know the kind of people who, what drives them to be so bitter. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a discussion as much as the next person. I love an argument, but I'm quite prepared to say, you know what, you're right, I kind of misread that, or the circumstances have changed and I'm going to revise my opinion. Once people start to get very, very personal, you think that really doesn't show a great deal about their character or their intellect.
Exactly. One strong opinion you gave quite recently that caused a bit of furore is that you thought that perhaps the loss of Sky Sports to greyhound racing wasn't as big an issue as a lot of people think.
Yeah, I think that has to be said in context, because I had a Twitter kind of discussion with people, and listen, I would prefer that Sky was there. I would prefer that we had a fully vibrant Sky, but I think we have to remember what Sky became. It's a little bit like people saying, wasn't Walthamstow amazing? And we all remember Walthamstow as an amazing track, and we can probably remember what it became. Same for Wimbledon. I think towards the end, I thought Sky started to look a little bit underfunded. I thought certainly from the glory days with Dave Lawrence with his spectaculars, that was as good as ground racing publicity has ever had. It was incredible. I still remember, some of the shots. I don't know quite how he got the funding and the crane shots and God knows what, the music, everything about it was superb. But in this industry, you get to hear things. You get to hear that the bookmakers weren't happy. They funded it through GBGB, but they funded it. That money had to come from somewhere. We knew that RPG TV was also out there, and I guess in many ways it kind of suited their business model more. They would rather have run sort of what we call bags racing in an evening rather than the glory spectacular meetings.
And really, thank goodness for RPG TV. Without that, do you think there'd be big problems?
Oh, absolutely. There are times that I look at RPG TV and think I might as well be in a betting shop, because the content and the quality is just not there. And there'd be other meetings and you go, they did so well with the limited resources they've got. They had interesting people on the programme, and let's not, however way you view it, that extra funding for things like the Yarmouth Derby and the Scottish Derby and the Select Stakes, we need that in the industry. We badly need it. So much, despite some of the reservations I'd have about the presentation of RPG TV, that's an editorial decision. It's another, as I said, I'm quite happy to have a discussion on it, but I respect other people who've made those decisions. But in terms of needing it, absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about things that have changed over the years. One of the things we haven't touched on that's changed dramatically is the GBGB itself, and you've always been very close to the people at the sort of head of affairs there. How do you rate the current regime?
Oh, this is by far the best, certainly the best chief administrator or managing director or whatever role you want to give it in Mark Bird. He's come in without, he's coming very much more open-minded. I think people still don't realise he doesn't come in completely hands-free. At the end of the day, he's the head of a board. He has board directors, and those board directors are themselves in conflict on different things that they all want. And it's his job to kind of keep his board in order. I mean, it's more like a sheepdog than anything else. I think his heart's in the right place. I think he's made a very good job. And I think over time his continued clout and his record will work in his favour. So the longer he's in the job, I think he'll have more options to take this sport in the direction I think it needs to go.